Hello, and welcome to today's virtual happy hour tour. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families, to more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families, regarding health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, the AARP Magazine and the AARP Bulletin. During the months of November and December, AARP will focus to help you navigate the complicated healthcare system. Caregivers are frequently frustrated by their healthcare systems, from Medicare, insurance, and care coordination to inadequate healthcare staffing and medication management. We know helping your loved ones navigate their medical needs is hard. AARP is your wise friend, and we're here to provide support and guidance. We can also help assist with resources, expert content, and tools. Visit us at aarp.org/caregiving for more information. Thank you again, and I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy that you can be with us tonight. Oh, have we got a great show for you coming up. So, I know some of you are watching we've got Twitch, YouTube, where you can go watch back episodes at Hip Historian on YouTube for Arizona History Happy Hour. Also on Twitch and Facebook as well. So happy you're joining us, and on Spotify. And so my name is Marshall Shore, and so today is November 16th, 2023. The year is coming and starting to wind down. Now, when you look at what happens today, so on this date back in 1941, British Royal Air Force cadets were stationed at Falcon Field, and they were entertained by the Spanish American colony that did a civic program for them, but it was in collaboration with the wool growers of the South Side. So, what I love about this little bit is, if you didn't know that the British Air Force did do a stint in Mesa at Falcon Field, you've got that. But I didn't realize that there was a South Side wool growers group, that there was enough wool being grown on the South Side that they had their own little group. So now it's like another thing to go back and try to find more information on. So I love how just one thing feeds into the rabbit hole, another thing. So it is also National Button Day. Now, buttons used to be just, ornamental. They came to actually fasten clothing together around the 13th century. And, I don't know about you, but I spent many hours as a child playing with a jar of buttons, stringing them, organizing them, playing with them, doing all kinds of things. So I love the fact that it's National Button Day, so we can celebrate those buttons. And even though there may be Velcro, zippers, good old-fashioned buttons still do the trick. It is also National Tolerance Day, which is a time for us to take and celebrate the fact of open-mindedness, listening to others, expressing your opinion. Now, can you recall the last time you had a difference of opinion with someone, and the learning that may have happened during that? Or even the last time you learned about someone's culture? That's always fun. I recently was down in Tucson and went to a Chinese tea house that was so much fun with the traditional tea ceremony. We're actually talking about maybe doing an event down there next year. So hopefully we'll see you there. It is also the Great American Smokeout. In case you're a smoker or a friend of a smoker, this is where the American Cancer Society offers 24 hours of, just give it up for a day. Maybe you'll give it up for 2, maybe beyond. So, do your lungs a bit of good and just say sayonara. All right. Oops, you click on the right button. All right. What can you expect from tonight? Well, we've got a little bit of trivia coming up. We've got some music history. We have a libation, Little Arizona, and of course, a super special guest. So if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I got here about almost 24 years ago to the day. I was working in Brooklyn at a Carnegie building, decided to trade all that snow and slush to work in a little library in South Phoenix where there was a rich oral tradition of the community. So I first started learning about Arizona through stories, and that still happens today. It's all about the story. Oh, and we're just going to fast forward through those. I'm also the hip historian, which means I get to play with Arizona history. So, coming up in the next, before the holidays, you've got Festivus coming up. I've been involved with every Festivus since the first one, I think 12 years ago. It's been a while. Also, there is the Phoenix Vintage Market, which is on Black Friday. And this Sunday at Warehouse 215 is a pop-up queer holiday market sponsored by the Equality Chamber. So that should all be fun events. We just did a photo shoot for Arizona Unzipped at the Orpheum Theater, which is next year celebrating 95 years. And so they invited us to be a part of that celebration. So we are going to be on for January 5th and 6th. I know you can get tickets through the Orpheum, or if you go to azunzip.com, you can find tickets there as well. It's going to be an amazing show. And I of course, I'm biased, but I think it's going to be a really cool show. Plus, you get to have cake in the Orpheum. How often do you get to do that? And, on Facebook, we were having a discussion about the Super Bowl. I started talking about softball. And Jerry said, hey, I have a program from the late 40s, the ballpark that used to be over on Roosevelt. And so the Phoenix Softball Park, suddenly this program arrived. And I've never heard it called the world's fastest softball. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I just got it. So I'm going to have to follow that up and see if indeed that is true. Please, I see some of you already. Hello, Alex. Good to see you. And hello, Deb. Thank you so much for joining us as we get a chance to explore Arizona history. Now, if you want to say anything outside of this chat, you can always reach me on Facebook, Marshall Shore Hip Historian, Instagram, Hip Historian, email, hello@Hip Historian, or through my website, hiphistorian.com. All right. And now, because it is happy hour, there is a libation involved. And so PJ, who is my cocktail ambassador, keeps me well lubricated. And so I don't want to give away an answer, but this is Arizona Sunset. It is a rosé. And so we'll talk a little bit about that once we get to that portion of our trivia. All right. So Little Arizona, a chance to talk about, even though we have the 5th largest city in the country, we have a lot of small towns. And so tonight we're going to talk about Window Rock, which is up in Apache County, population of just under 2,500. It is the capital of the Navajo Nation Reservation and is named because of this hole in the rock, creating a window. It's a sacred space, and they have the National Council headquarters here in an octagonal building, as well as there is a zoo, the fairgrounds, a museum, and so much more. So if you haven't been up there, take a spin and go visit. They also have it looks like a lot of fun. All right. Well, now we get to chat with someone else. You get to hear a different voice other than just mine. So I'm going to bring on my friend Dave.
Hey, Marshall, how are you doing?
I am good. And yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right, Dave. So people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. I moved here a little bit before you did, when I was in 7th grade, from Maryland. I do not miss the winter, and I do not miss the summer. I really enjoy it, and have moved basically to Phoenix, a little bit around, and have been in Mesa for the last, almost 20 years. It's my home. Got my kids, my chickens, my dogs, the snake, the cats, I'm sure other animals. It really made Mesa our home. We're right here in downtown Mesa, just less than 4 blocks away, Mesa blocks from the south side that you mentioned earlier. And have for the last 8 years, I've been really involved in affordable housing development, community development in general, and just all over the place. And now I'm working for a large bank, talking to nonprofits across the entire state. So I don't know.
So there's a rumor that you were just featured in a national magazine.
Yes. So this month's issue that I have not been able to grab a hold of, the project that I finished when I was working at Newtown CDC, which is Community Land Trust, was Tempe Micro Estates, which is a 13-home tiny home community in central Tempe. And it was just featured in Dwell magazine with some of the homeowners there.
Wow, that's really cool.
So it's really exciting. Like, I love the project. I worked on it for, over 3 years, 4 years. And finally, when I left Newtown, it was just being completed. We had everyone, almost everyone moved in. And I was like, I'm super proud of this. And then that was it. And here we are a year later. And
someone else says, hey, that's really cool.
And someone else came up and said, hey, that's really cool. And so that was really exciting to have that that come up. And so that's super cool. And I'm hoping to, I need to run to Barnes & Noble or so. I don't know where to buy physical media anymore. I've called around. I called Changing Hands and other places. And I'm like, do you sell magazines? And they say, no. But so I have to go to the mega chain. I think
you're gonna have to go to B&N to find, because they've just got that big wall of magazines.
Yes, and I called them and they have it, but I'm like, there's no local option. So all right, I guess magazines aren't as cool as they used to be.
So all right, so I know you've created some trivia for us.
I did.
Indeed. And so our trivia is a little bit different here. So on Happy Hour, we are more interested in the stories than just the answer. Because, bar trivia, just like, okay, the answer is A, on to the next one. And they never come back and talk about why is that the answer or why is it not the answer. But that's not what we do here. So you can keep track of it. I know Anita has a special notebook she uses. I've got one friend who constantly sends me, he's written them on his arm or other appendages. So however you want to keep score, some folks keep it in the chat session. It's all good. And so let's get ready for question 1. All right. When Arizona was organized as its own territory back in 1864, how many counties did it have? Was it A, 4, B, 5, C, 7, or D, 13? How many counties do you think Arizona originally had long before it was a state? Question 2. Which of the Arizona American viticulture area was first to be recognized by the U.S.? Was it A, Sonoyta, B, Wilcox, C, Verde Valley, or D, all were erected at the same time? That's a good one. What do you think? All right, question 3. The Sonoyta AVA composes of 319 square miles in southern Arizona. Which county or counties is it located in? Is it A, only Santa Cruz, B, only Cochise, C, Santa Cruz and Cochise, or D, Santa Cruz, Cochise, and Pima counties? I've already been sampling the wine, so there you go. We'll just chalk it up to that.
I have a bottle in my basement. Now I'm thinking I could go grab some.
All right. Question 4. In what year were all Native Americans granted citizenship by the U.S. government? Was it A, 1870, B, 1898, C, 1924, or D, 1957? So what year were all Native Americans granted citizenship in the U.S.? All right. Question 5. In what year were all Native Americans finally granted the voting rights in Arizona? Was it A, 1924, B, 1948, C, 1965, or D, 1970? So when were Native Americans granted voting rights here in Arizona? All right, coming off that halfway point, question 6. What year did Arco Santi break ground? Oh, I love Arco Santi, but more on that later. All right. A, was it 1953? B, 1962? C, 1970? Or D, 1982? What year did Arco Santi break ground? All right, question 7. How many guest or hotel rooms are located at Arco Santi? A, none, B, 2, C, 12, or D, 22? All right, question 8. After losing control of his property back in 1931, Alessio Carraro moved to what Arizona city to build a roadside attraction today known as Carraro's Grotto? Well, he just had a penchant for building things, didn't he? All right. A, was it Crown King? B, Dewey, C, Paladin, or D, Yarnell? Where do you think after Carraro built that iconic castle right off the 202, where did he go after that? All right. Question 9. Who directed the 1980 comedy Used Cars starring Kurt Russell and shot on Mesa's Main Street? All right. Was it A, John Carpenter, C, John Landis, C, Brian De Palma, or D, Robert Zemeckis? Who do you think directed that comedy that was shot in Mesa? Was that far from where you live?
It is literally a block away. I could walk there in less than 6 minutes.
All right. So question 10. Bisman Zebulon Pierce brought Coors to Arizona in what year? Was it A, 1896, B, 1933, C, 1941, or D, 1959? Wow. I would have thought it was later than any of those options, so I would not have been a good candidate for this question. So I would have gotten it wrong. All right. So while you're all locking in your final answers, we are going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break and talk about Russell Big Chief Moore. Born 1912 in Gila Crossing, Arizona, which is now the Gila River Indian community. Passed away in 1983, started playing the trumpet as a youth, and then moved on to the trombone when he was in Chicago, where he was too young to go into the clubs, but he could stand outside and hear all that music. He's collaborated with such artists as Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, and was in Louis Armstrong's all-star band. If you ever listen to the recording Hello Dolly, you'll hear him calling out, "Take it, Chief, take it," And so that is indeed referring to Big Chief Moore. So go listen to some music, and we're going to go back to some answers. All right. So question 1, when Arizona was organized by its own territory in 1864, how many counties did it have?
4.
Wow.
and part of California for some reason.
I know. I'm like, wow, that was awfully big.
That's a weird looking state. I am fascinated by the era of the Spanish colonialism, Mexican ownership, and early Arizona and political subdivisions for, I don't know why. It's dumb. Like when Arizona was part of Spain, the counties were literally from, there was just like, someone back in Spain drew a line that covered from New Mexico all the way through Arizona into California was one county. And so it was like 4 counties. But the thing that made me want to ask this question is not, I cannot find an answer, is why did Santa Cruz County get created and why is it so tiny compared to all the others? Arizona has giant counties. Why is Santa Cruz County just this little tiny one that's basically Nogales and well, I mean, it's big compared to the East Coast, but
right.
I've Googled this. I have no idea. Weird politics.
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can definitely look into that.
And like, I guess, like, as soon as you hit populations, you're like, you know what, we should be our own county. And then we stopped doing that at some point because I don't know why we stopped breaking up our counties. I think what is it, like Greenlee is like the newest county or something like that.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just fascinating. Why? And why did we stop?
Well, and then I always look back to the Baron of Arizona. I mean, when you basically had this guy who falsified documents and almost showed that he owned Arizona.
I don't know anything about this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's a great movie with Vincent Price that tells the story really well.
Was this actually true? That
it was actually true. So yeah, so he went back to Spain, changed documents, and so I mean, I think it's just so amazing when you think it's like in an era before people could just Google, okay, who actually owns Arizona? I mean, this guy went back and changed lots of documents to prove that he owned Arizona.
Yeah, I since I used to work in real estate, I would go back through our title, and a couple of the titles would have a president's signature on the title because it was granted to the state. It's like this property's had 6 owners, and the first owner was signed over by the president of the United States. And I'm like, this is we live in a weird state.
Well, then there's also, okay, so have you heard of the Baca floats?
Yes.
And I love how there's one left, and it's like this super secret ranch that nobody can get onto, and I'm like, wow, is that still considered Spain? Who knows?
That used to be like most of New Mexico and Arizona were the various Baca floats.
So yeah, there were a bunch of them, and they've all converted to public lands and things. So
yeah,
that is the one remaining one. All right, question 2. Which of Arizona's American Viticulture Area, or AVA, was first to be recognized by the U.S.?
Sonoita, back in 1984.
Yeah.
Cheers. And in my opinion, the best AVA we have. It is absolutely beautiful. If you have not had the opportunity to go to Elgin and Sonoita and experience one, there's a bunch of places that have great wine. There's also a bunch of great places that have okay wine, and there's a few places that have terrible wine. But it is beautiful, and it is absolutely worthwhile. There's nothing better than just sitting out on some of their tasting rooms and being able to experience the high desert. it's 5,000 feet in elevation in Sonoyta. Like you think about the Mile High City, and we're growing grapes in southern Arizona at 5,000 feet.
Right.
And the history of wine in Arizona is fascinating. It was the Spanish that brought over grapes, and they must have made some terrible wines. I think there may be one or two vineyards that are still growing those original Spanish grapes. But up until Prohibition, wine producing in Arizona was like stuff that was done by miners outside of mining camps out of raisins.
Doesn't raisin wine sound tasty?
I guess if that's what you got, that's what you make it with. But by the 70s, by the 20s, once Prohibition hit, that was pretty much the end of wine in Arizona. By the 20s, it was like totally done. But in the 70s, there was a gentleman, Dr. Gordon Dutt, that he was a professor that came to Arizona, and he started growing grapes outside of Tucson. And he finally started the first vineyard, first in a long time vineyard down in Sonoyta, Elgin area. And man, there's just amazing wines. And a lot of the wines that you have in Cottonwood at some of those awesome places, the grapes are grown in Sonoyta or Wilcox. And it's just I don't know. It's beautiful and I love it. They get 20 inches of rain, ancient seabed. Sorry, I could talk about this all day.
And what I think is, it's like people are like, oh, when you mention Arizona wines, they're like, oh no, I only do Italian or California wines. And I'm like, well, actually, if you start watching, it's like Arizona's really gaining on that wine industry. It has become one of the staples of our economy.
Yeah, it's super awesome. And tasty. I love wine. Wine's great.
Exactly.
And it's filled with stories. Wine is storytelling.
Indeed. And I've got friends that'll go down sometimes to some of the wineries and help pick grapes.
I'd love to do that. That sounds great.
So, yeah. All right. So question 3. Sonoyta AVA composes of 319 square miles in southern Arizona. And here comes your love of counties. I can see.
Why are counties so big? I don't get it.
All right. So which county is the Sonoyta AVA located in?
It's mostly Santa Cruz, but it's also Cochise and a little tiny bit of Pima. And I don't know, at 319 square miles, it's probably bigger than most counties in Kentucky,
Bigger than Rhode Island.
Oh my goodness. Everything is bigger than Rhode Island. So just to keep, talking about what a beautiful part of the state this is, if you get the chance to go and drink a glass of wine at the Rune Vineyards tasting room, which is on the side of a hill looking down into a gully across the grasslands, and you look at the mountains and the big giant floofy clouds that are coming in off of Mexico, there's nothing better. And then the sommelier from F&B just started a vineyard down there called Los Milich. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they did a gorgeous brand new tasting room by a Scottsdale-based architect. And they have great wine, and now it's got beautiful architecture, and it looks straight up at, I think it's the Whetstone Mountains right there. And it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So go down there. Rune, Los Milich, and Callaghan Vineyards is, one of the old school staples and just great, great wine. People, I think everyone I've met has been great.
Yeah, I've only seen photos of Pavel's new winery. It looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And they're talking about adding like little casitas in the back, on the back side of it. And I don't know if that will be in my price range, but I might find a time where it is.
Right. Or, there's always pitch a tent somewhere, and so, and so Callahan Wineries, I've got friends that have gone down and volunteered with Kent to go pick grapes.
Yeah. Well, when I was there, I've been calling it Callahan forever. And when I was there last, someone was like, no, it's pronounced Callaghan. And my
Oh,
brain has been broken ever since. And last time we were there, Kent wasn't there, so I couldn't just ask him. Because if it was him or
oh,
his wife, I would just ask. But I was
right.
told over and over and over by multiple people that I've been pronouncing it wrong for 20 years. And
Oh,
so obviously I can't be wrong, but I
but
need to
that.
ask Kent.
Well, no, that's why it's like, well, I've gone to wine tastings, and I thought, it's like I had some wine, but who knows what they said.
Yeah,
So
every time I go there, I do have a glass of wine. So maybe there's a.
maybe that's where my error comes up, is like, oh, I was a little tipsy. So, all right. So, question 4. In what year were all Native Americans granted citizenship by the U.S.?
1924 with the Indian Citizenship Act passed by Congress and signed by President Coolidge. Um, I think that it is like a failure of the education that I received as a child, but many others, that we don't think of. We think about. We talk a lot about women's suffrage or other minority groups earning the right to vote, but Native Americans in the United States were kept from voting for a very, very long time. In fact, Governor Hunt, when this passed, he went to great extents to try and prove that, well, if Native Americans are living on tribal land, then they're technically under guardianship per the Arizona Constitution, and they can't vote. And so even though the US Congress and the president signed a law saying any Native American born in the United States is a legal citizen and has the right to vote, Arizona banned voting by Native Americans on tribal land because they're afraid that it might skew the election and, get the other guy in. It's just, this is really recent.
Yeah, no, it's always amazing. And then you find out like the Indian school here in Phoenix was operating until not that long ago, which is always shocking.
Yeah.
All right. And question 5. In what year were all Native Americans finally granted voting rights in Arizona?
1948. So finally, there were some returning military veterans from World War II, because in 1940, the U.S. government went through a lot of effort to say, hey, what we said in 1924, we really, really, really mean it. And oh, by the way, join the military because we need people to fight overseas. 10% of Native Americans served in World War II, the largest portion of any ethnic group, period. So a lot of Native Americans went overseas, fought for our country, came back, and they're like, hey, why can't I vote? So finally, a group took this to the Arizona Supreme Court in 1948. The Arizona Supreme Court struck it down and said that you guys are reading the Constitution wrong, or they banned that section of the Constitution, whatever they said. And they said they can vote as long as they can pass our literacy tests.
Right, which I thought was so interesting. It's kind of like no one else has passed a literacy test.
Some people did. And at this time in 1948, there was an estimate that on the people living on tribal land, 80 to 90% were not literate in English. And so the literacy test was still a ban. It wasn't until 1965 for the Voting Rights Act where they finally were like, you got to stop with the literacy tests and you can start providing language support in other languages other than English. And I want to say it was either 72 or 75, 1972 or 1975, where it was finally prohibited across the entire United States to have these barriers to voting. So the answer may not be 1924 to answer to question 4. It may actually be 1975 was the time when people could actually vote in Arizona.
Wow. That is just incredible.
And that's yesterday, man.
Right.
1975.
I think I have socks older than that.
I can see some items on your shelf that are
Yeah, I
a
was
little
like,
older than
yeah,
1975.
most everything in the house was probably older than that. So, all right. What year did Arco Santi break ground?
1970. This is one of my favorite places on the planet. I don't know why it is such a magical place to me. You visit and it feels like Star Trek come to life. Like, like I either like the original series or the next gen when they like beam down to a planet and everyone's like walking around in their white robes and it's like through this really cool futuristic spacey architecture. That's Arcosanti, and it's in our backyard, and you can go there right now. It's just, I don't know, one of my favorite places, and a great thought experiment for how we live as humans together, or don't.
Right. Well, and the fact that it's like, I mean, I remember having them on as a guest, and we got into a topic of air conditioning and about how they were like, oh, that's one of the worst things that ever happened to Arizona was air conditioning. Because it's like, yeah, and so we're talking about it, it's like, back in the day, you would have these really thick walls. You didn't need the air conditioning. It only came about because we wanted cheaper housing that was easier to take care of. So, I mean, it's just, and then all the bells that they make, the foundry up there.
Yeah, I've got 3 of the brass bells, and I just love them. They're just such an Arizona icon and beautiful pieces of art.
Right. Has the restaurant opened up again?
I don't know. I have not been up. We went up once during COVID, but everything was closed, so we got to go and wander around the outside parts. Right. But I haven't been back recently, and I need to.
No,
and how you can stay there.
Well, and let's move on to the next question, because how many guest rooms are located at Arco Santi?
And the answer is 12. And I said guest hotel rooms because there are a couple of Airbnb facilities there. And then there's also the Sky Suite, which is my dream to go up and have like an artist retreat up in the Sky Suite, up on the top right there. But right now, for really, really affordable rates, you can go and stay overnight in one of the 12 little guest suites that they have just down the hill. And it's a great time, and it's a steal. And you get to walk the grounds as a guest, not as a tourist. And it's a really great time. You can just sit out on that patio and look out across that I don't know, it's not a valley, gulch.
But I mean, I love that they do so many different events up there. I mean, like they'll have music, they'll have dance recitals. I don't know if they're still doing Forum, but that was something that was on my bucket list and I never made it to, where they just
Forum.
Yeah, it sounded really cool.
Yeah, we were able to go to Italian night once, and that's the night where they come out, and it's something that Paolo Soleri brought up because he was Italian and wanted to bring that. But they would bring out giant wheelbarrows full of spaghetti and meatballs to serve to everybody. And so when we were there, we were seated under the huge arches, and all the people brought out these literal wheelbarrows full of pasta. And it was fantastic and beautiful. It was all Italian music, so it was classical, just some great stuff. And definitely 100% worth it to go to any show. I've heard the electronica shows are super awesome there too.
Oh, that would be fun. And I know they did one event where it was like this mixed media, and all I know was it included, they had music, but it was dance, and they had a spotlight. So it was more of a shadow show on the mountain across the way.
Yes, I've seen pictures of that. And they had like dancers coming down from the crane, and
Yeah. I am like, oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun.
I hate to call it like hidden Arizona because there's like a freeway exit and a giant sign,
Right,
and
I
you
sign
know,
up,
it
people
shows
don't
up.
know that it's there, and I'm like, it's so worth a stop.
Y'all need to exit the freeway, go there, spend the money on a bell, spend the money on a tour to help support this crazy vision of how we can all live in a better life, but also such an incredible piece of both Arizona's history, present, and future.
Right. And
And you
then I
can
had
drink wine on the patio.
and then you could drink an Arizona wine on the patio, indeed. And I had one friend who actually was invited to become one of the residents and help make bells, but he turned the offer down. And I'm
Oh
like,
my goodness.
oh, I don't know if I would have done that.
If there was, I don't know, a different life would have had me like living on minimum wage, building that place. But the brass bells or the bronze bells are mostly poured in Cosanti in Paradise Valley, and apparently they do the bronze pouring a couple times a week, and you can go visit. It's like 7 a.m. That's also on my list.
Ah.
But Paradise Valley is so far from Mesa.
Oh, indeed. Oh my gosh. You have to put on some different shoes to walk all that far.
I know.
And then I know it's like with Modern Phoenix, they actually offered like you could make your own like custom bell. You could make different changes to it, which sounded, but that booked up almost immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, how much fun would that have been?
That would have been amazing.
All right. Oh, and then I love this question so much because another hidden gem. So, okay, question 8. After losing control of his property in 1931, Alessio Carrero moved to what Arizona city to build a roadside attraction today known as Carrero's Grotto?
And I think it's challenging to call it known as today Carrero's Grotto, but it is Yarnell. And I don't know. So I went to a Catholic high school, and so I have a bunch of friends that were involved with I can't remember. It's the Shrine of Saint Joseph up there.
Oh, indeed, just beyond this. That's actually what I'm talking about for kind of like from the vault. So no, I mean that's fine.
Sorry.
Because I thought it was so cool that it's like you brought up Carraro. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right down the street is then Saint Joseph of the Mountains. So I was like, how cool that these two roadside attractions are so close, and we're talking about them.
And so I was up there for a couples retreat for a couple that I was a part of that was not a successful retreat, I should say. But we were coming back, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a sign up on a wooded area behind a vacant lot. And we got out of the car and we walked up and started discovering all of these boulders with the names written on them, and like all these decrepit signs and things. And then pretty soon we realized we were probably trespassing, but we're pretty deep back in the boulders, and it's amazing. It doesn't look anything like that today. It's I don't know. I haven't been since before the fire. But it was such a glorious place and such a weird roadside Arizona thing. And then to find out the connection to Tovry Castle, or I should call Carraro Castle. I love that it's called Tovry Castle.
Right, exactly. Even though built by Carraro.
Yeah, it's he gets the cactus garden named after him, which was who was the Russian cactus botanist guy that designed the garden there?
Oh, I don't remember his name, but
starts with the T. It doesn't matter.
And the fact that the gardens are so much smaller than they were. I mean, so it was a much larger area than what is now. So jumping back to the prior question, Anita, her husband was just telling her stories about Pablo borrowing a tractor from their ranch in Scottsdale. And so I know. I'm like, oh, okay. Sounds like a glass of wine, or maybe some Jameson to get some more stories about Pablo out.
Yeah, no, I would love to hear those stories. I met him briefly when I was at Arco Santi, and he was older, and he was doing like talks on Fridays for a long time that I always wanted to go to, but never made the time for, and now that time's lost.
Indeed. And next you go visit his bridge in Scottsdale on the canal.
Yes.
So, which looks nothing like the rest of his architecture.
No, it's the Scottsdale version, I think. And then GCC has the Solari Amphitheater in the backyard in the back that he built. I don't know if it's still standing, but
I remember there was a bit talking about demolition, so I don't know whatever happened to that.
Yeah. I've never visited since I knew about Solari, and I should make an effort to run up to GCC and check it out.
I know.
If it's still there.
All right. So question 9. Who directed the 1980 comedy Used Cars starring Kurt Russell that was shot on Main Street in Mesa?
That was Robert Zemeckis, i.e. the Back to the Future man, the director of Back to the Future and so many other movies. And this movie is, for some people, sort of like a cult black comedy. It's about Kurt Russell right after his Disney days, and he's going to be the next like leading man. That never quite happened for him, but we all know who Kurt Russell is, right? And it is it was 1980. It was the comedies of the era, so it's totally like sexist. It's got nothing but bad words left and right. And in the background of this movie, you get to see all of old Main Street in Mesa, and then Kurt Russell's character's manufactured home is in Tempe at the old Tempe Teepees, the wigwam.
Oh.
And there we go. Yes. So I bought the 4K remix up DVD, or Blu-ray, and I watched it with the director's commentary on it. Robert Zemeckis is sitting there talking to Kurt Russell, and they're like, we hired all of these kids, $15 for a day. You must bring your car and then drive them all out to the desert. And then we're watching all of these kids, and they're all these extras they're all high school students. And they're driving through the desert. They're driving mad. Someone should have died on that film shoot, but no one did. And he's like, I'm just thinking, I'm like, all those kids were, 18, 17 in 1980. What are the stories of that? Yeah, Chaparral, I bet Mesa students, there's probably 100 stories that go on there because a huge amount of people, and they're all local.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've got friends that now all they do is they travel around and be extras in movies across Arizona.
That's so cool. Not for $15 a day, though.
Actually, I think they do it for less, and they do it for just the sheer joy of doing it.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I'm excited because it's like, now that there's actually now more of a concerted effort to bring movies back, or the filming industry back to Arizona. And then you've also got Mesa has the Sidney Poitier Film School now.
Yes, which is beautiful. If you haven't had a tour inside, hit me up. I've got an inside
that would
track.
no, I haven't. So, that would be cool.
Let's go do it together. It's a super cool space. I will also say that the car lot. So the movie takes place 2 competing car lots across the street from each other. One is still there. It used to be the Darner car sales, and then across the street, which was the Roy L. Fuchs car lot, and then across the street is Kurt Russell's, which is now an apartment, but then it was just a dirt lot that they built a set on. But there was a time when Darner went out of business, and for about a year it was vacant. And I am still mad for not grabbing a projector and going and showing it on the side of the building. So the
Oh,
next time that place doesn't have cars all over it, we're going to go project used cars on the side of the old Darner lot.
what fun. I'm definitely down for a little guerrilla cinema.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
So cool. All right. Question 10. Mesa businessman Zebulon Pierce brought Coors to Arizona in what year?
1933. I don't know how this happened because Prohibition ended in December of 1933. But Coors was apparently real quick about getting stuff out of Colorado again.
Wow.
And I almost made one of the questions in the 70s to coincide with Smoking the Bandit to try and trick people. But then I'm like, no. No one will believe it was the 70s. And then your comment where you're like, I thought it was way later. I was like,
See, I would have said it was way later because I always thought Coors was kind of a specialty thing because it couldn't be transported. Because I don't think we had it in Indiana in the 70s and 80s.
No, and the reason that Zeb could bring it to Mesa is because he owned one of the, or could bring it to Arizona is because he owned one of the largest mechanical cooling facilities in the state.
Oh.
And so the Zebulon Pierce was the Pierce grocery chain or grocery store on Main Street, which is was soon to be Arizona Distilling, I think, is going to move into that building.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if the building is original to. I think it was torn down and rebuilt over the air, but that was the origin of Coors in Arizona because he had all the coolers.
Wow. That's really cool.
I don't know. I find it really funny. I'm like, Coors has never been like my dad drank Coors. I'm too snooty for it. But I will say, right down the street from my house is a really okay Mexican restaurant, unless you're from Mesa and you grew up in the 60s and 70s. And then it's the best Mexican restaurant, unless you went to the other one. But they have a little side cocktail lounge, which I will tell you the only appropriate beer to drink in there is a Coors or maybe something of that same thing, because that is that era that room feels like. Is like I need to be drinking a Coors out of a little dumpy can or a bottle.
Wow. Well, it sounds like we need to do a tour of Mesa. Come
on down, let's do it.
You know, I love all the stuff that's going on in Mesa. I mean, I love that there's so many entrepreneurs moving out there. Young folks doing some really fun stuff. The Mesa Art Center has just been doing gangbusters. Phenomenal. I mean, bringing in so much, and I love all the art classes they do.
So the Mesa Art Center is the largest multidisciplinary art center in the Southwest.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
Yeah, and that's just, it's got the 4 theaters, but then it also has glass blowing. You can go up on the roof and forge yourself a sword. You can go down and you can make jewelry and lapidary. Then there's acting classes. And then there's the Mesa Contemporary Art Museum is one of the best kept secrets of Mesa. It's one of the best contemporary art museums. Never mind my strong opinions about our city manager inserting himself in trying to
about that whole debacle. But I mean, Tiffany, her team just do amazing stuff.
They're incredible, and also really, really pleasant people.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. I mean,
good people. And so I don't know, like that museum, I think for the square foot punches way above its weight compared to any other museum in Arizona.
I would agree with that. And I love the fact that for Second Fridays, it's like there's so much going on in Mesa.
Yeah. We laugh. It's a 30-year overnight success story. Now we're working on, we've got, over 3,000 apartments under construction in the downtown alone. We've been asking for housing for 30 years. It's all coming at once. We worked for a long time to get affordable housing to be part of the mix. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened with the powers that be. We were able to build, a couple hundred units of affordable housing, but that's going to be dwarfed instantly by one regular apartment complex. And but our hope is that we can make sure that we keep a mix of the people that work in our restaurants and the people that enjoy the fancy cocktails, and
Right.
and then also the entrepreneurs that can grow with the city. And so we don't have a lot of chains downtown Mesa on Main Street, and we're really happy about that. We have a lot of local businesses that have put in literal blood, sweat, and tears, and really grown from almost nothing. We just Phantom Fox just opened. That was the two guys that bought the old King's Tape building. And they started a tap room and Chupacabra tap room, and it went gangbusters. And they decided to take over an old brewery that just went under a couple years ago. And they just opened last week, brewing all of their own beer. They are collabing with one of their food trucks to be the restaurateur inside.
Oh, nice.
I love and these guys ride their bikes everywhere. It's such a Mesa feeling.
Well, and then you've got like Cider Core right around there.
Yeah, Cider Core and Mike's Pizza and oh my goodness, not Press Coffee. Gosh, the coffee shop that's in there. So it's another collab.
We just had a coffee shop just opened up, and we were talking about that coffee shop, and I haven't been there yet.
It is really, really good coffee. But yeah, it's again 3 entrepreneurs, all from here that are collab.
And you just froze. So we can still hear you, I think.
Hopefully that's not my internet.
Oh, well, we have you back again. So
well,
there you go. But
whatever
yeah,
I said was fantastic.
I think it's so funny that sometimes people kind of like almost like poo-poo Mesa. And it's like they're doing so many amazing things. I mean, being the first installation of basically light rail into historic designated area. So
and our mayor at the time, Scott Smith, there was a lot of pressure to not put it down Main Street. And he's like, no, it needs to go down Main Street because we need to bring the economy up. And it was the right decision because, one, it would have been slow and people using the rail having to divert around a little quaint downtown. And it's so, I don't know. It's been a lot of good decisions, a lot of decisions I don't necessarily agree with, but that's part of the mix, right? We all live in community, and part of living in community is trying to be tolerant and for our day of tolerance, and just trying to work together to be a great place to live, to raise your kids, to grow old, to live without kids, and just be human together. And I think that is what makes great communities is people that want to be human together.
Right. I mean, and you've also got some great food up there as well. I mean, some nice empanadas.
República Empanada has the best empanadas. I still argue that restaurant, they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary, and it's still one of my favorite restaurants.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize they've been there 10 years.
10 years. They opened, well, they bought the building the same year we founded the Mesa Urban Garden next door. And they opened up right as we were making the garden pretty. And it's just such a great family. I love just the whole family they're just good people and neighbors. They've now all bought houses pretty close to the restaurant. So
oh, nice.
You run into everybody at Chupacabra at 10 o'clock. So
Well, and then you've got the Nile Theater, which is a great venue.
Yeah, Michelle has done amazing things bringing that building back from everything it's been over the last 30 years, a furniture store and a church and everything, to getting a liquor license back. That was the only building in Arizona that has ever had an injunction against the building. And so there was a state injunction preventing them from selling alcohol, and they had to go to the state and the city council and everything to get it undone, because there were some fun things that happened there in the 90s that got the attorney general that came down and placed an injunction against a building. So it didn't matter that she didn't know, she wasn't the people that did it. It was the building was the criminal.
Glad things have
she
changed.
just opened a record store, a used record store around the corner, right next to the Novel ice cream.
Oh, nice. And I think it just got listed on the Register of Historic Places.
Yes, that and both the local and I think it was already on the national, but it's such an impressive building. It's sad that the proscenium and things were all lost through the ages, but the bones are there. The basement is funky. It's got a loft up on top, which has been both her office and an Airbnb and stuff like that. And you can go up. She was doing yoga on the roof.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It's so much cool stuff. Mesa's so fun. I mean, Mesa's terrible. Please stay away. You need to go downtown Phoenix. I hear Scottsdale's nice this time of year.
Gee, thanks, Dave. That's just what we all want to hear. So I always love to end with, how did people do? Anita already kind of jumped on the back and said she got 3 out of 4, but she only joined towards the tail end. And her husband is actually working at the Mac tonight. So very good. So yeah, so I look forward to getting a chance to come out and doing a little tour of Mesa with you. That would be a hoot.
Anytime. Yeah. And people still answer my phone calls, so we can usually get tours of stuff if you want to get behind the scenes.
Of course.
But,
Well, I mean, I've only heard about the Nile basement.
I went to a show. I went to a show there, and I was the oldest person there by double. My wife works at ASU, and one of her student workers had their last concert before he was moving out to LA, and so we went down there, and it was a great time. But we were old.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for having me on. Can't wait to host you in Mesa.
Indeed. That'll be a fun day. I have a feeling there might be some beer drinking going on.
Always.
And Roxy, I didn't realize you were not far from downtown Mesa. So Roxy, who is a librarian as well.
Oh,
you want to go check out the new brewery. So I'm like,
yeah.
Indeed.
We just had a speakeasy open in the basement of a building downtown yesterday. I think Wednesday was their first day of operation. 35 West Main Street. I don't know how to get in yet.
All righty.
Sorry, I'm no good at wrapping anything up.
No, I mean, that's actually right down my alley. I'm like, ooh, no, now I kind of want to go and check it out and see, how do I get inside and what do I got? What are the options? Oh, that sounds like a good test.
Yes.
All right. Well, we will make that happen soon.
Absolutely. And Roxy, you're more than welcome to join.
Indeed. Yes. All right, Dave, have a great rest of your night, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Dave, thank you so much for coming on. I love talking about Mesa because people just tend to think it's not that cool. And I keep trying to get them to think that, yes, it is really cool. So, all right. So as we get a chance to talk about From the Vault, which is something you might drive by or just wonder what it is, we are going to talk about the St. Joseph Shrine, which was built in 1939 and was originally, there was a family, the Wasson, and they also did it in collaboration with the Catholic Action League back in the late 30s. And the artist was actually he had been in World War I and basically was like, hey, if I make it through this, I'm going to dedicate my life to this. And so Felix Lucero then wound up moving to Tucson and living in a little hovel pretty much and just creating all these statues that went all over the place. And so even though there was that horrific fire where the firemen lost their lives, 19, this space also was a part of that, but through volunteers, they've rebuilt a lot of the staircases and handrails. So it is back in business again. So I definitely want to go over there and check it out now that it's kind of there and accessible. So everyone, this is why I always say, share if you're watching on Facebook, because we are having so much fun with Arizona history. Next week, our guest is Dr. George Brooks, who's going to be talking about South Phoenix and some really amazing of his own family history. Oh my gosh, not a show not to be missed for so many reasons. And, I love to hear from you all. So please reach out and say, hey, I've got a great idea for a show or something. I always love to give Chris and Cole a great little thank you so much for that video at the beginning, as well as PJ for keeping me well informed of what's going on around town with booze. And, as we get ready to say goodnight, I'm going to end with the official, well, I don't want to say the official, but I Love You, Arizona, which is one of the state songs, not necessarily the official, but not the unofficial. So here we go.
Hello to all my fellow Arizonians. Dirk Bentley here. Being born in Arizona, the Grand Canyon State holds a very special place in my heart. I've had a chance to travel all over the country, and I've been to a few places outside of the country, and I can tell you there's no place in the world like Arizona. Arizona happens to also be home to many amazing musicians, 66 of which live, work, and perform for you in the Phoenix Symphony. This incredibly talented orchestra recorded what you're about to hear right from their very homes. Through the power of musical magic and some fantastic production support, I am also happy to be sharing this musical love letter with each of you alongside these incredible people with the Phoenix Symphony. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. I love you, Arizona. Your mountains, deserts, and streams. The rise of Dos Cabezas and the outlaws I see in my dreams. I love you, Arizona. Superstitions and all, the warmth you give at sunrise. Your sunsets put music in a song. Arizona, you're the magic in me. Arizona, you're the life of Sage and cactus are blooming, and the smell of the rain on your skin. Ooh, Arizona, you're the magic in me.
Thank you for joining us in celebrating our amazing home state. We're so grateful to have worked with the wonderful Dierks Bentley and with Arizona Highways to bring this musical love letter to life. From the beautiful and majestic scenery and landscapes like the Red Rocks of Sedona and the breathtaking Grand Canyon, to all of the warm and welcoming people who have made Arizona their home, there's so many wonderful things that I love about this amazing place. Now that you've seen some of what we love about Arizona, we want to hear from you. Show us what you love most about the Grand Canyon State. Post your own photos of your favorite places and faces using the hashtag #ILoveAZ. And please be sure to tag us on Instagram and Facebook at The Phoenix Symphony.